Okay. Hopefully you can hear me now. I am just working on getting all my settings. I got a little behind because having three kids under 5, it's hard to get everything lined up in time. But let's jump right into this game. Let's see. All right. So this is game 1 between Justin Desai, allstarz97, who is the dark side player at the top of your screen playing Court of the Vile Gangster. And his opponent is MatthewHT, who is playing Legend deck. Desai has started 3 completely standard effects: Jabba's Haven, Battle Order Combo, and Wipe. And his turn 1 is playing Jabba from reserve using the audience chamber, using Jabba to download Scum and Villainy, and then pulling a docking bay with his objective, and playing Lady Proxima from hand. Proxima is going to give him a second Battle Destiny once he gets 2 aliens there, and she's going to reveal the top 3 cards of Desai's reserve deck in his control phase, and if there's an alien, he can take it into hand if there is one there. Meanwhile, Matt is taking his first turn. He started with the Maz's Castle Drain -1 site and 3 very standard effects: Brave Resistance, Walkling, and Strike Planning. And he looks like, did he use Strike Planning once? He used Leadership to grab Holdo. Yeah, and he did use Strike Planning once to grab Leia. So, and right now he's putting Leia down with Brave Resistance to upload a different Resistance character. She's checking basically. She can grab anyone, so he could grab like an EPP Ray because her ability, all the Resistance guys are ability 5 or less. So he can use her to grab an EPP Ray, and then if he wants her back next turn, he can just send down the Ray to grab her back. So he takes Solo. And he's mostly checking, is my Twix in there to pull with my objective? Is my Luke in there to pull with the site? And so cool. Thanks for confirming sound is working. We have some comments. People are surprised to see Desai playing Court. And I'm surprised myself. I wouldn't have put him on Court. And I probably would have guessed if he was going to play a Scum deck, it would be the CCT deck that has become quite popular recently. However, Matt played No Idea in his round of 16 matchup against Bastion, which I streamed earlier. You can... might be deleted from Twitch by now. It might be on my Twitch. Otherwise, it's on YouTube if Twitch did delete it, if it was more than 2 weeks ago. Can't remember. Time is weird with COVID. And so he played No Idea last round. Justin might have thought if he did that again, Court is maybe a little bit better matchup versus No Idea. Matt plays Projection of a Skywalker onto the audience chamber, and that'll make it a drain 0. Of course, Desai wouldn't have paid to drain at this point anyway, but with 2 systems out and Court being able to pull ships, at some point Desai's going to be draining free, and the first time he does that, you have to lose a card, or you essentially lose projection by playing it, but then it stops all the subsequent damage. So Matt just preemptively pops that down. This is a super interesting match. JNAP is surprised that Jakku is out. Yeah, it looks like Matt is either not confident he can take the system and he wants a place to run around to, or since he top deck a spin because he didn't have a character on Tatooine and he had to lose a force to Court of the Vile Gangster, and that went off top, we know he has the Falcon, so maybe he thinks he can take a system and might be chasing him around and wants to drain extra there. But he did go ahead and play a second system. He also might have just needed activation if the Matt ended up essentially just drawing a bunch of cards. So I'm guessing he activated the Twix and or Luke, and maybe also the Black Sun 1-0 site, which I imagine he's playing because Desai has played Black Sun in the last round of 16, and so it would not be a surprise to see Desai play Black Sun. So I imagine that site's got to be in here. Interesting. JNAP says, the biggest thing I learned from Texas Mini Worlds was don't even allow the chance Jakku is the only location in reserve in Legend vs. Court. And Joker agrees. And Joker plays a lot of Court. But the thing is, Matt's first move wasn't to look for a location. It was to put down a card with Brave Resistance. So he knew that was a location, and he decided to pull it anyway. Maybe he just thought he would be too far behind, too force choked if he didn't pull anything and he'd activated the rest. But Joker, can you tell me why are you so happy when they drop Jakku? Is that so you can run around because you don't think you can beat their space? Because I would figure Court, if they can get Guri out, would just beat Legend space. They would have Pondababa out, adding a Destiny to attrition that's +2, Wolf making Destinies -1, and then Guri capping them. That seems to be in Court's favor to just have the one system. I guess people are saying if you take it over, then if you get Ellison Hinthor there that adds a light side icon, it's a drain 3. So if you do have better space, you're sitting there draining for 3, or even if you're chasing, you're draining for 3 and then 1, 3 and then 1, instead of just the one system out being drain 1, drain 1, drain 1. So I guess that's under the assumption that Darkside space is better. Darkside pulls all its space and has stuff like Guri. Under that assumption, it does make sense to be happy with a second one, other than Light doesn't have to pay to drain anymore, and they have a second battleground for someone like Rose. Otherwise, if there's just the one system and Dark owns it, Light has to go to both the Maz Castle site and the Great Pit of Carcoon, and then they have to pay to drain it both. They have to pay for Rose. It's a huge pain. So I could see it either way, but I think Matt definitely needed the activation. He dropped the saddle from reserve deck, so that must have been the one force he used to pull Jakku. So that's why he had to draw all his cards. He couldn't risk the 2-0 being the very bottom card of force, and so he paid the 1 and then was drawing and not seeing the 2-0, and then realized as soon as he drew his last card, it was the one force I used. So he recirculated. He pulled that. Desai on his turn, he just played Zam, and he drew up to 12 and saved 6 force. So Matt drops down the saddle from reserve and then Luke from hand. And then he goes ahead and pops out Ray and Rose so that he can not keep losing to Court Ping. And with Desai having so many cards in hand, so much force, Matt getting that slow start, basically being set back a turn by not having this in his deck turn 1, Desai's set up in a really good position right here. Legend versus Court is a very interesting matchup. In that I think it's fairly close to 50-50, and it's going to go a lot on who has more experience in the matchup. And with that, I would have to tip my hat to Justin on that, because even though he doesn't typically play a lot of Court, he plays a lot of Legend. And so he's played against Court a lot and knows what lines of play are more successful that the Legend player and the Court player can make, and which are less successful. So I think that'll be a benefit to him. All right, so we're at the start of Justin's third turn. The other interesting thing is this is match play, so differential matters a lot. If Scum can get rolling and keep its loss pile low, it will have guys to... Justin plays a Twi'lek probably to pull the 2-0 site out of the deck. I don't think he needs another leader right now. Yeah, it says he had to choose that option, so he's looking for a passenger deck. Um, this if Scum gets rolling and keeps her lost pile low and deploys guys in battles and retrieves, and they can really win by a lot. So Light wants to slow that down, wants to get a lot of cards in lost pile, so Scum's life force is low enough that it can't do everything that it wants to do. It can't save battle destinies to draw and have enough force to deploy and have enough to pay to retrieve and pay battling's free with the battle order effect, but it's definitely, you want to get them down in force. So Justin plays the Space Cruiser from reserve with the objective, and the Space Cruiser downloads Mitt for free, and then he drops a Dengar and Punishing One, which will negate Poe's immunity less than 5, and he plays an Ellison Hinter from hand, so he's just stacking that Jakku hard. That's going to be a drain 3. I think it's unlikely that Matt hits 3 different battlegrounds anytime soon to resistance it or ultimatum, because he'd have to go to the system and both sites, and then he'd be vulnerable somewhere to Justin just attacking Scum Retrieve, so I think Justin's set up really well here. It looks like he did. He downloaded Sidon, which is interesting. Oh no, he didn't download a Smuggler. He played Sidon from hand, so he can still download a Smuggler at some point. Let me catch up on some comments here. Joker knows it's good for court that this isn't a Blaster Ping version. Nick points out that in match play, Matt had played QMC and court is good against QMC. And I'm trying to scan these quick. No Goldenrod Shield. I think the only thing that really deploys free in the deck is Guri and the pull from Space Cruiser. Looks like he also threw Cad Bane on there for extra forfeit. He just, without Guri, he knows light side could be like ship Poe Lando or ship Poe Holdo, add a Destiny with command. Could even throw Finn with Poe and use the add +2 Destiny thing. And he doesn't, if Matt draws good, he can clear a bunch. But with your bounty hunters being forfeit +2, Cad then is a 7. So he just wanted some extra forfeit up there. He's basically stacked that. It's going to be a drain of 3, and he's going, all right, if you want to pay me 3 to drain 1, you can't retrieve right now with Coward, and then I will drain you 3 for free, and then just draw and save and wait to attack into you when you have to do something else. So Justin is looking good right now. Justin right now saved 2 force. So people are interested at Sidon. I saw him in a CCT build recently too. This week I got really into CCT because everyone's been talking about it. So I think I saw him in a build. He can place someone out of play unless they lose a force. So every time you're battling over a location, every character you kill there, they probably place out of play like random dudes like, Corrin or whatever that might be up there for forfeit, and they're just like, all right, he dies. But if they want to save someone because they're like, ooh, I have a second copy of Rey, or I'm gonna want to walkling that guy, or I have a Jedi's Resilience for that EBP Obi that's just forfeit fodder up there or whatever, then he ping damages them. It seems okay. So yeah, if Legend is playing Gold Leader, Justin has that force saved. Or if Matt's playing Gold Leader. Yeah, okay, so he saved 1 and then he wiped and activated a second one. So Matt right here is kind of going in the tank. All he's done is activate, and he's thinking like, how do I deal with this? Because Matt got such a slow start and Justin got such a fast start with the Proxima in hand, with hitting all his pulls in terms of Jabba, Scum, and then Matt missing his, that just right now decks are so fast that the early game matters so much that if you hit your pulls or miss your pulls, it's a really big swing. And Justin hit his and Matt didn't hit his, so now Matt's like, how do I catch up? And I'm starting to agree. I agree with J Knapp and Joker King, who basically said, yeah, you don't really want Jakku out as the legend player there, because right now it's going to be tough for Matt to answer this. If the Jakku system wasn't out and Justin stacked that and it was just a drain of 1 and Matt could stack 2 sites, and or he'd be fine, you know, eventually when he flips, this will be a drain of 2 with 2 resistance characters, and he's like, all right, you do 1 at the system, I do 2 here, maybe a BB-8 ping, I'm doing 3 to your 1. Justin will have to go here, and then Matt can attack in at his leisure. So it's definitely worse with Jakku out, but I do see why Matt pulled it if there was no other activation in his reserve at that point, or he just wanted the 2 force, or maybe he thought he was going to win space. But I think this goes to the point of what I was saying earlier in terms of experience with the matchup. I think Matt has only recently started playing Legend. In fact, I think like within the last month or 2. So he's got, you know, maybe a dozen games in with it, but not extensive, and I don't know how much against court. Walkling is asking if he can commentate. He did message me earlier saying he was going to jump in if some basketball game was over. I assume he was dunking over someone's head. Justin says careful on the timer because there is like a 5-minute timeout. Sometimes when I'm thinking, what I'll do is like take one action that'll be like pass a phase. Like if I'm tanking in my activate phase and I've already activated, I'll just pass the phase and then they pass back, and that gives me another few minutes before the timer runs out. So Matt puts down Chewy and grabs Poe with Brave Resistance and pulls him out. So now he's decently stacked. Justin probably is only playing one other ship, the Stinger. It's possible he has Zuckuss, which now Matt has enough ability. Holdo's a 3, Poe's a 2, Tandem's a 2. So could be Zuckuss or could be a Stinger, but otherwise he probably doesn't have to fear getting attacked into too much. So Eric, yes, you can call. Let me open Discord. And see. I'm not super set up for co-commentator, but I think this game will slow down a little after those first few turns of setup. Let's see. I should also full screen this. All right. I don't think I. All right. Eric, I am calling. So Justin pulls Firepower at the end of Matt's turn and retrieves his starting interrupt, prepared defenses with it, and then he, on his turn, drains 3 at Jakku, and Matt loses the 1-0 because he's activating 16. He does not need that now. And I'm wondering if he just activated the Hut and the 2-0, both sites. He activated, I think, 9 first turn, something like that, and just decided, well, I need force, I can't deploy nothing. So Matt top decks a Padme and a Rescue in the Clouds to go with those, and Justin Proximo's a Ponda Baba into hand, and he plays a grabber in case Matt has any looping interrupts, most commonly in here like the female interrupt. But Matt also loves his interrupts in his QMC. He had a ton of interrupts. So let's see. Eric, I'm trying to call you. Let me see if... All right, I think my webcam's going to die here for a second while I try and make my webcam work in Zoom so that Eric and I can see each other. I see Eric. Now, how do I make us two? Okay, I think... All right, so sorry, Eric. Also, I can't hear you right now, but I will fix that. Let me update on the game while I fiddle with settings. So Stinger comes out to the system, and Justin, and now he pulls Goldenrod, which is going to cost him 2 force, but maybe Matt's playing a number of shield pullers, and so he's feels free to do that. Justin is essentially draining 3, and Matt is now doing 1 and 1 and retrieving 1 if Justin doesn't chase. So they're actually on quite equal footing there. But once he chases, that will be a different story. Okay, let me see. Eric, is your mic unmuted?
I think so.
Oh, there we go. Okay, now I just need to now turn on that. All right. Everyone, tell me if Eric is too loud or I'm too loud so that I can have our sound similar. Eric will have to talk for that to happen.
I will have. Yeah. Sorry for joining late, guys. I was watching the Celtics game.
How'd they do?
They got themselves up by 2 with 0.5 seconds left, and then Toronto scored a 3 within those 0.5 seconds left. So it was disappointing.
That's exciting.
So it looks like Justin's court. I don't think I've ever seen Justin play court before.
That's what all the commentators were saying is that's a surprise. Discord.
Yeah, I'm wondering why. What do I miss? I'm a little curious why MHT hasn't tried to go for the audience chamber.
Yes. Okay. So turn 1, Justin played Jabba with audience chamber, downloaded Scum, played Proxima from hand. Matt's turn 1, there was no saddle in reserve deck, so he pulled Jakku. And then just drew a bunch because the one he used to pull Jakku was the saddle, so he had to end up drawing all his force. So then Justin's turn 2 was just Zam, draw to 12, and save 6. Matt's turn 2 was drop Saddle and Luke. And Ray and Rose, I think, to stop the court ping. And then Justin's turn 3 was just a bunch of ships. Matt's turn 3 was a ship over here. So basically Justin hitting his Jabba Scum Proxima pull and Matt missing the saddle pull put Matt a turn behind to where he just decided not to attack into this. Figuring maybe a Greedo in hand or that he didn't have enough force or wasn't going to do enough damage.
Yeah, I'm a little. It's curious that he went down with Ray though, because Ray is typically Legend's best fighting character, and not the character you want to plop down to pick up a Drano 1.
Right. I'm guessing his plan is just tank that site with a couple resistance guys, BB-8, flip, and drain 2 and ping 1. And but yeah, I agree. We did see him brave resistance for solo, but I mean solo and Rose is a pretty weak force that you kind of want to deter them from attacking into it at least a little bit. This is non-V Stinger, so its pilot does have ability. So Justin consolidates all of those over at Nalhada.
But no Guri?
No Guri, and what's interesting is he played Stinger, and there to Jakku, and then he moved it instead of just playing it straight to Nalhada. So he must have had second thoughts midway through the turn and just was like, nah, I will go ahead and engage him. So Justin grabs a rescue with something special.
Yeah.
So right now the damage race is looking like Light's doing 1 damage in a drain and retrieving 1, and Dark's alternating as they chase, doing 1 at Nalhada and doing 3 at Jakku. So they're averaging 2 a turn, while Light's averaging 1 and retrieve 1. It's a fairly close race at the moment, but Justin, I think, clearly has space and now can start working on the ground.
It's interesting that he's playing the something special planned. I don't think that makes it into a lot of court lists, and I'm wondering if he was wondering if MHT might play Legend. If you looked at
Legend specifically,
yeah, I mean, if you look at like what other deck, what other card do you care about if you're a court player?
I'm guessing it was MHT specific because.
These are all like the barriers and
right in his QMC it was like 4 leaderships and 4 barriers and like 5 rescues, and it was some absurd number of these interrupts, and so I think he was just like, well, MHT could play a lot of interrupts and I'd rather be able to grab rescue and a looping, it could be worse or something, or female interrupt or whatever.
Yeah, I guess that's probably it. I was gonna say the legend lists that Justin and Brony played to qualify for the top 16 both ran it's like 4 leaderships and 4 rescues, and having an extra grab bear against that deck's really helpful. I don't know if MHT is playing a similar build or not.
Well, I think my picture just lost.
Definitely playing the dungeon in between the AC and the pit is very good here.
Right, you can't pile up and then move in.
Yeah, that would only be to. I feel like that'd be largely to the light side's advantage if they could have moved in straight away. Do you think Justin's going to be playing Gravity Shadow or some extra tech here?
No, I don't think so.
Or,
I think he's okay just chasing, and I think his goal is to just keep his life force up, keep that loss pile low, and so he'll be suiciding guys in as needed. I think right now probably the onus is on Matt to do something, and so if he splits to the 3rd site so that he can ultimatum, Justin can attack in the weaker place.
yeah, I bet Matthew would be interested in flipping so he can start doing some more damage.
True.
With Projective Skywalker already down, he would be draining for 2 at the pit, retrieving 1, and if he continues to run away in space, he'd be taking damage 1 at Nalhada and then 3 at Jakku, but he'd be ahead on the drain race if he flips.
So Matt plays, I think I can handle myself, to add 1 to the drain, and Justin opts not to grab it with his allegations of corruption. Thinks
Masterful move, non-V. Interesting.
Losing None Shall Pass from hand also is interesting. I would put Justin on having a second one on hand then. Like, it would scare me to see him lose that because Ahsoka and EPP Obi are both very vulnerable to it. And so if I'm deploying into the audience chamber, I would lead with one of those to try and draw it out and know if I should deploy one. You don't want to deploy solo and then deploy the EPP Obi and go, oh, crap. So, yeah, seeing him lose one of those is a little worrisome when you definitely have some Rebels screaming Lando's another one. Yeah, this is interesting matchup. Yeah, game kind of slowed down here. Chat slowed down a little bit. I think this is going to grind down to 8 force win or something by, I would guess, by Justin. I think time is also going to be a factor. I wouldn't be surprised if our clocks get down to under 10 minutes. Justin's a fast player. He's already up by 5 minutes on Matt, and Matt took a long time after that one activate phase before he went to space. He probably took 3-4 minutes right there. But I do think with a grindy one like this, where both players have the potential to retrieve and they're only doing 2 points of damage maybe per turn, time might come into play. Yoshi says Justin needs to wait for MHT to flip and then suicide a weapon character into Rose or BB-8. Yeah, I imagine Matt probably plays 3 Roses, so killing her isn't as big a deal. It shuts her off for a turn, and Matt would have to find another one, but which he might be putting down to grab Chewie and stuff like that. So killing her is nice, but there's probably more. But killing the BB-8 is definitely good too. So
interesting that he's just deploying Finn like that.
Right. When he reacts free there, because Justin probably has, I'm sure definitely has Get combo, probably has barrier as answers to Finn deploying free, and so he decides, I'm just going to go ahead and pay for him, stack that side a little more, and threaten the Destiny Adder if you come attack me there.
Yeah, I'm wondering what... And then Finn is also could be very good in space. Like, he doesn't have Guri. He could have had the I'm getting good at this.
Right, and drawn 3 Destiny up in space and 4 with a ship or something.
Also, this is a little bit of a minutia, but he force drained first to play the female interrupt to add 1 to it, and then he paid 1 to retrieve 1, which was the rescue in the clouds.
Yeah.
I think I would have done it the other way around, just to have instead of having 4 blank 5 to have blank 5 4. To kind of have the good Destinies bunched together. And then I also I think that makes it a little bit easier on you to find the female interrupt again if you flip at some point, where you would but maybe that's too hard to say. What I'm referring to there, if there's an interrupt you want when you're playing Legends, you activate, or if there's a card that you want when you're playing Legends, you activate, so that's the top card on your reserve deck. You do everything during your deploy, you do your move, and then you use the cheat, and then you move it over to your top card of your force pile, and you draw it.
Yeah.
So normally you would take, unless you had 3PO, it would take 2 turns to get that female interrupt but you could actually
grab it every turn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Using the flip side. I'm not sure about this gold leader and gold 1 here. It feels like the only other ship Justin might have is a Zuckuss and Mist Hunter, and probably, I don't know if he would or not. I don't know that gold leader was needed, but Matt decides to just play it a little safer, and Justin does get to retrieve Masterful with firepower.
Well, he's going to retrieve if you deployed Finn, so I don't understand why he did that deploy. What he was thinking there.
The Finn?
Or just both deployments. I mean, I guess he just wanted to use.
Yeah, I'm not sure about deploying. I'm not sure about the gold leader. Finn, I like the deploy because I'm assuming he has the Destiny Adder in hand. With just Rey, Rose, and BB-8, if I'm Justin, I'm suiciding in anybody, especially if it's like Dengar, IG, anybody who can take out these little weak characters. P59, anything like that. But now, if Justin comes down, he's risking 4 extra power from Finn, and then the Battle Destiny Adder.
But he was kind of risking that before. If he does Justin want to spend his Gick or the Lana sacrifice if he plays that to prevent the Finn react?
Probably.
And then
if you're dropping Dengar on somebody and you battle and retrieve, and then you get combo to clear out all this, you would.
At most, MHT is losing Rey there, though, in that situation, because he can prevent the weapons.
And stop all the weapons, sure. That's a
And then
good
he
one.
has, if he really wants to, uses the force projection to reduce the destiny.
Mm-hmm.
So like I feel like worst case scenario, he would just lose Ray,
Right.
and then he'd retrieve her with Rose the next turn.
Fair.
Image.
Wow.
All right.
That's a card I wouldn't expect to see in court. I mean, unless you're anticipating this matchup, it's a great card.
Well, if you're anticipating players stacking locations.
Fair. So now it's a drain 0. Once Light flips, it will become a drain 1. Light can ping 1 with BB-8 and retrieve 1 with Rose. So we're back to where we were. BB-8 and Image just canceling each other out. Joker points out Rose being there, Finn can go to used, so it's easy enough to, if he does attack in, just send Finn to use and send someone else down with Brave Resistance to get him back. But I agree that he would have been good in space if at some point the ship split. Seems like they might. Justin's playing a lot of space. So he's got the Boskin Houndstooth, which is not going to do anything here. Well, unless Matt plays the Falcon, which he must have since he top deck a spin. I don't know what... there's no independent starships. Oh, it's for the Han Chewie Falcon against No Idea.
Yeah.
If he's assuming No Idea has guts and plays Han Chewie Falcon, then he can drop this down and get his own Destiny to attrition and clear out more stuff.
Yeah, I imagine. I'm wondering if he even plays Zuckuss. I could see him cutting it in favor of.
Right. Zuckuss is expensive. It's Destiny 1,
Zuckuss.
He costs 6 force, 5 with scum out, but it's just... Yeah, Zuckuss is too expensive, I think.
Yeah, but you can add a pilot to it, and for years, it's the best dark side ship.
It was.
I wonder if Matt will first aid himself into the audience chamber.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a thing that could change this game. If Matt can deploy to the pit and Odin in. Justin's got to have so much in hand, though, that, I mean, if he drops Forlom there, he can blank Ray, add a Destiny with Jabba. Like, I think you can't do that move unless you have General Leia and a leadership, at least one leadership.
Right.
Which is probably what Justin's saving his grabber for.
That would be my bet as well. Those are the two key interrupts in this for Legend, I think. It depends on the build, but for the one that when Justin and Steve were playing, those are the two key interrupts.
So the Stinger has hyperspeed 5, so it can get from Jakku to Octo. So if Matt ever does flip, that can move over and then land and start training. That's a threat as well. Yeah, that is the prison, and you can have the all of the Jabba's Palace sites can go in any order. So you'd have Tatooine Jabba's Palace right here, and then any of the sites in any order. Except the Rancor pit, I think, has to go on the end.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but someone was asking if you can split that dungeon like that. Yep. Oh, and I think the entrance cavern has to go at the front. So really, they basically have an order for everything except these two and the lower passages and like the antechamber. All of those ones can mix up in any order, but goes palace, entrance cavern, all the interiors, and then Rancor pit. And Justin, once again, just moves all the space. He's going to take a ping of 1, Matt will retrieve 1. And then if Matt deploys anything and then runs, Justin will just firepower it back. So Really not seeing a lot of progress. Justin's getting some damage through.
Are you sure? I feel like both players' lost piles have gotten smaller since I've started watching.
Well, Justin's doing 3 and then 1, so he's averaging 2 a turn, and Matt's only retrieving 1 a turn. So Justin's getting damage through, but with Matt only doing 1 and then Firepower retrieving it every turn, Matt is not doing damage. And that will need to change, and it's going to be a tough road to get there. It's not going to happen in space. Right, 28 power to 14, and even if you add some destinies one time, it's just a matter of time until Guri is found and Dengar's still clearing out stuff and Ponda's adding to attrition. So
he's using the force pile pole right now.
Okay. So I imagine we'll see it come out this turn. Wonder what you go for here. Are you going for the Odin combo like you mentioned to go in? Are you going for like an Ahsoka or General Obi or something to go to the antechamber and set up another location? Is he going to attack the audience chamber? He does have 4 in reserve, so if he's playing Leia's gun, maybe he's grabbing that and he's going to Leia gun, shoot down Proxima, that sort of thing. He's got a few options depending on what he's playing. I would definitely be worried about that None Shall Pass if I'm going into the audience chamber, especially since it was lost from hand, not reserve deck. All right, so Matt does the pull. He'll ping, and I imagine he will pay to retrieve. And Justin loses a Scum and Villainy from hand, so he's feeling confident he's not going to lose that audience chamber. Matt would have to control it to cancel that, or he'd have to play an altar. There's no oppressive, so it's unlikely that Matt has altar in the deck. And of course, Lightside is not going to play Leia Rebel Princess that would instantly let him control it because they're going to use General Leia in this deck.
So it seems very likely to me that MHT will want to move his starships away. And you have to bank on Greedo. Do you think you play around a projective telepathy here?
It's hard to imagine him fitting in all of these cards because we've already seen None Shall Pass, which sometimes is played, but he's got way more space than normal. He's got that image of a Dark Lord. He's got the something special planned, so he had to cut somewhere to make it down to 60 cards. So it seems like Barrier's probably a cut because we haven't seen one of those played this turn. It's hard to see him also fitting in a projective telepathy, but it's possible. All right, so we know Matt does need to save 2 to move those ships away. He plays a weapons display just in case there's a stunning leader. Stunning
leader would not hit Zam.
Exactly. Zam also, and Chewie and R2 would be left.
That's right.
So Zam would get a Battle Destiny. Chewie would hit her, and she'd draw Battle Destiny, and if it was 5, Chewie would die. If it was 4 or less, R2 would go used. So Matt can retrieve with Leia, but we know he needs to save 2 here, and he probably wants to save 1 in case there's a Greedo. Yeah, so he opts not to retrieve. And there is the Greedo. Oh, and Matt uses the Odin to cancel that.
I'd be interested in... Yeah, he doesn't grab it. Odin could be very useful going forward.
Right, I liked your idea of just like abandon the pit and move everyone in, and especially if you've got that Destiny Adder with Rey and Finn, you force Guri down here and you can kill her with a weapon, and but just pile the audience chamber. Right now you're so far behind in space and with Jakku out that if you can take the audience chamber, you're looking a lot better. Which is obviously what he's trying to do with all these characters, but having some more in there is always nice too, especially an extra saber and 2 guys who can play the Battle Destiny adder. Okay. So Matt flips.
A projective would be very big here, but I agree. It doesn't really seem like a card that I don't know why you go for.
Why would he?
He's going for the wrong guy.
Well, okay. Here's my. She's forfeit 6, Proxima 6, Jabba 7. Maybe he has a sorry about the mess. He should, because Finn can pull it. I don't think we saw Finn pull it, and so he must have it in hand. He wants to sorry her because he wants to lose Leia, and he doesn't want to lose to Zan. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. She has armor 4. She has ability 4. Yeah, they're equally hard to hit. Proxima's adding a Destiny. Yeah, I would have gone for Proxima, and I got a problem with Champ Edge. You guys streaming can see. I'm gonna refresh here. Does that sometimes?
Getting some red text.
Yeah. The like. There's a problem communicating with the server. Blah blah blah. So it looks like Zam was hit, and Justin is deciding. It's stuck on this, so Justin must be deciding if he's going to use a Lana combo to save or forfeit. Debating you don't want to use that and then have them use a sorry about the mess blaster proficiency to just insta killer, which sort of indicates he doesn't have a sorry canceller in hand, because otherwise you just save or forfeit and then cancel the sorry. Did the game freeze? Oh no, neither of their clocks are running.
Neither timer's moving.
Oh no, they both are wondering it's each other's action. We will be replaying this game. That is so frustrating for everyone, I'm sure. Yeah, Justin noticed it's frozen. I don't even see her hit, he says. Yeah, Zam should be hit here. Yeah. Someone's timer should always be ticking. Like it's one person's or the other's action. So if you ever see neither timer ticking, that's how you know it's frozen. Okay. Well, F. Yeah, Matt said no. I don't see your hit. Do you? And Matt said no. I assumed you had a Lana in hand. That's what we were thinking, because it was just paused on this. It was asking if you wanted to use it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're both going to refresh and log out and do all that, but it's never worked. There's games frozen all the time. There was one just frozen like 3 days ago that they just rebooted the server, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours ago, and there had been a frozen game up that was frozen for like 3 days in a row, just sitting there. And players have done everything to try and log out, log in, refresh, do everything. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave the room in case that does anything, but it won't. I've never seen a game get unfrozen once it's stuck. Oh.
So are they gonna have to replay this now?
Yeah, I don't see any other option.
Who do you think that benefits?
I think
is there a benefit to it?
Well, so it depends on how this battle goes, I guess. Matt is, and that would be really interesting to see, because if Matt can just clear the audience chamber here and trade like an R2 or something, if he can leadership with Leia, right, to cap Justin to 1 destiny, and then that destiny's 4 or less, so R2 just goes used, and he draws 2 because solos with Chewie and cracks 7 if he gets 8+, and he can't always solo the heading. Then he clears both the other ones. Then he's sitting there with Leia, Han, Chewie, and Justin has nobody there. I think Matt's in a good position there, and then runs in space. If, on the other hand, that battle goes differently in that Justin draws a 5, let's say a Twi'lek Advisor V or a None Shall Pass or something, he draws a 5, and Matt only draws, 7 or less.
I think Matt's gonna draw 9 or higher.
I mean, he knows.
I don't think he does that battle unless he knows that he's gonna hit.
It's possible.
One of those ability 4 characters. And we knew that there was a 4 and 5, and we saw a 1, so I think it has to be a 4 or 5 that was left in reserve.
Probably. So I think, and then if Justin draws 4 or less, then R2 could just go unused, and having Solo, Chewie, Leia, and no dark side characters in there, I think Matt's in a good position. If, on the other hand, Dark draws a 5 and has to lose one of the Light has to lose someone besides R2, and Light draws less than 7, so Proxima lives and just Jabba dies, and then Dark can come down with more guys, I think Dark's in a pretty good position. So it really depends on that battle.
R2 actually doesn't go used.
Oh, there's no Scomp there.
There's no Scomp Link. Not in Jabba's palace. He didn't shell out extra to get his
it was
Wi-Fi.
Originally a Bomar Monk palace that Jabba just moved in and took over. And so the Bomar monks, I guess, must not have been too tech savvy. Though they did put their brains in jars, so I don't know.
They just were very specialized in their technology.
Yeah. Well.
So it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. They're talking about. They're asking in Slack if anyone has any ideas about it being frozen, but I've never.
Yeah, I can't imagine Justin put himself into a position where he wasn't going to have a counter beat. That he was just, he was going to have Greedo and he was going to have something survive. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do think that. But one of his tricks, he might have been holding a second None Shall Pass, thinking EPP Obi or Ahsoka's coming down, and it was useless versus those characters. And holding Greedo, and then holding other characters. I'm sure he's probably got Forlom or IG or other random stuff he can come back with. The key would be, does he have to lose both of these? Because if there's nobody in there, it's a lot harder than if there's a Proxima in there who's going to do another peek for you for other aliens, and who's going to add an extra destiny in the next battle, where hopefully Matt doesn't have a second leadership. Now, of course, this question is, did he have a leadership? Because if Justin's drawn 2 destinies, more than just R2 dies. But if he does have the leadership to cap, probably only R2 dies and does not go used. I'd be curious to see their hands, to know what Justin had to come back with, to know what, and of course their destinies, but we're not going to know that. But I'd be curious to know if there was going to be a leadership played this battle. And okay, well, I think we'll see some discussion from them to Desai is talking in the Slack chat with Robbie. He's doing commentary on the other game, and he's like, what happened? It froze? And they were like, yeah, both timers froze. And Justin said, I won by 43 and it just stopped completely. So Robbie posted in the rule, he says, we'll see if the game can be recovered. And then he pasted in rule number 19 from the Texas Mini rules thread. Texas Mini World rules thread. Gem crashes, : game will try to be recovered to be resumed. If game cannot be resumed, then play will start over. If in pod play, you have to do the same deck. If in match play, you must stick to the deck you submitted. So Justin's like, what should we do now? I think that game will try to be recovered is a pretty meaningless statement, because as far as I know, there's no way to recover them. But the people who would know, one of them is Jeremy, and he is streaming the other game right now. So probably Robbie's asking him. Yeah, I think we should go ahead and call this here. You guys will hear on the forums or in Slack or whatever what the resolution is, but I would wager lots of money they're going to have to replay it. And so you might as well go over to Germs951, twitch.tv/germs951. Germs spelled with a J, Jerms. To see the Shaw versus Crazy Runner Game guy. I'm gonna log off here, and hopefully we'll be back. I don't if they're I will restart the stream if they decide to just replay it right now, like in the next 10 minutes, 20. Like if they play it again tonight, I will stream it, but it might just be rescheduled completely.